Hello and welcome to week 5 of 6 Studio Ghibli specials here at the Duke of York's. Today's special screening of Miyazaki's groundbreaking work, Eating and Capitalism. I promise that title will make sense in a few minutes. I'm Adam Dova and I'm your host for this series. I come from a background in film theory and storytelling and film translation, and I've been researching Studio Ghibli for the past 7 or 8 years. I've lost count. Also did the official translation to The Wind Rises in Hungarian back in the day, so I'm pretty involved with these and have seen all of these like 35 times. And it's safe to say that almost all of the Studio Ghibli films are deeply rooted in Japanese culture and folklore and mythology, and I think Spirited Away is even more densely packed than others. So I'll be going to go into some of the elements that shaped this film and why they're important in understanding the story better. And as always, there's going to be a Q&A session and a discussion up in the bar upstairs after the film. So this film grew out of 2 separate things. One is a person, producer Seiji Okuda, who started out as Studio Ghibli's contact liaison at Nippon TV, who used to broadcast early Ghibli films. So it was kind of a work relationship, but they became friends with Miyazaki over the years. And one year in the late 90s, that's not the actual size of these people, it's just the photographs. So, yeah, it looks like Miyazaki could eat Okuda, but that's not the... in the context of that film, that would make sense, but no. Okay, so one year in the late 90s, Miyazaki invited Okuda to bring his family to a holiday, to which Okuda brought his 10-year-old daughter. And as the family spent time together, Miyazaki realized that he had done films for 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds, but not for 10-year-olds. So he started buying up all the magazines that were available for this segment of the market, 10-year-olds, and looked into things like Ribbon magazine and Nakayoshi. And he saw that most of the stories were about romance and, oh no, I'm having a fun and harmless crush on a slightly older boy, what will I do? That was the sort of story that you would normally get. And so when talking to his producer friend's daughter and other 10-year-old girls that were born in Studio Ghibli staff, they are used for market research all the time. So Miyazaki found that their actual concerns in life are pretty far off from what's in the magazines produced for them. So this is what I would call market research, but what Miyazaki would call paying attention to what children actually have to say when adults are listening. That's why he makes these films. So based on all these conversations, Miyazaki set out to create this character whose journey would answer the questions that these young people were concerned about and were asking him about, and also someone who these people could look up to. So that is source number 1 for the film, and source number 2 is a chance stumbling on a local Shinto religious festival. Now, there's a lot of water purification ceremony in Japan. These are called Yudate, or boiling water rituals. And some of them go back more than 1,000 years. Here's an example from Kyoto. Basic format, the priestess, specially prepares boiling water over an open fire, and then they invite in the gods with ritual dances. So it becomes sacred water and sacred fire. And then in the second part, you sprinkle the hot water out on the audience for blessings and purification. And you can kind of tell which of the tourists and photographers actually read up on what is going to happen based on A, who runs away, B, who has a protective cover on the camera. And there's one lady who's actually not a tourist and not with a camera and actually participating in the Shinto ceremony. I guess that means that she receives all the blessing from the gods. Now, there's a number of variations to this winter purification ritual series, and one special type is the Shimotsuki Matsuri. It's an 11th month festival, which refers to the winter solstice, which is a time for rebirth and initiation in a lot of folklore systems. And in one specific festival that is held in the Nagano mountain range, there's a part where there's an invitation for the gods to actually come into the water and enjoy a nice relaxing bath, similar to how Japanese people enjoy nice relaxing baths around the country in hot springs. So Miyazaki saw this ritual by chance on TV. He doesn't watch a lot of TV. He did watch this one and started thinking, this is interesting. Why don't we extend this concept of inviting the god to take a bath to an entire bathhouse? So this leads us to why bathhouse? is the main place for this film to take place. Now, bathhouses have a very long history in Japan, probably invented by the snow monkeys, we don't know. You can't see it very well on this, but every single colored dot on this map is a hot spring. There is a total of 27,000 around Japan, and a good 3,000 onsen or bathhouses built on them. Public bathing is an integral part of Japanese culture, so much so that before the modernization of Japan after World War II, most houses and even hotels didn't come with a bath. So you wanted a bath, you went to the bathhouse. There was a lot of puzzled Western tourists in those times. Also different from bathing in the West is how in Japan you first use running water to wash your body, and only then you take a bath, as you can see on this instructional poster. While this system partly comes out of reasons of hygiene, logically, it also gives a spiritual layer to taking a bath. As first you purify the body, and then you relax and reconnect with nature, and through that you purify the soul. So it's a dual thing that's going on. So for this film, Miyazaki, who normally likes to focus on the wind element in other films, explores the water element and its various meanings, and we'll get to the fire element next week with Howl's Moving Castle. So in this film, you can look out for all the ways that water appears and what it does and how is it in relation to the characters. Now, bathhouses can be anything from basic facilities built over a hot spring to these huge multi-level resorts with hotels and restaurants and everything. And here's the internal view of one. I don't know how well you can see it. It's by 19th century artist Utagawa Kunitoshi, and it's drawn with cats, as everyone, because everything is more interesting with cats. And they already knew this in Japan 150 years ago. So Miyazaki's idea for an onsen for gods is not that far off from this, actually. And the other thing is this layered structure and this ecosystem within a building idea that fits perfectly into the concept of using the bathhouse as a parallel for Japanese society, while disguising the whole thing as this mystical adventure. And that's where the title of the film comes in. Like with Princess Mononoke, the English title for the film sort of kind of resembles the original title, but just different enough to lose a lot of the meaning. Spirited Away on its own is fine. The original is Kamikakushi, which is a bit more nuanced. It means a state of being hidden by the gods. It's not necessarily you being yanked away and then brought back or not brought back. It's just the state of being elsewhere than the human world. The more important part is the two names, which are in the original Japanese. The title is Sen and Chihiro, hidden by the gods. And that is kind of the point of the film. If you look at the relationship between the girl that is called Chihiro and the girl that is called Sen in the film, and that takes you to a very interesting place. And it's about Japanese childhood versus Japanese adulthood. When you're a child in Japan, you exist as you are. It is your natural state of being, close to nature, even sacred in some cases. This is Mei from Totoro, quintessential Japanese child. And then you start to grow up and join Japanese society. And that is when you learn to operate on two levels and separate your private self from your public self, your inward-facing self from your outward-facing self. And this system is called Honne tatamae. Honne literally means true sound, which is your true feelings and desires, which are mostly kept private when you're an adult. And tatemae, which is facade, or literally it means built in front. The mask you wear in public, the public behavior, which is based on not what you want, but what society expects you to do. And that means that you have to learn a whole set of social rules that dictate how you behave depending on the context. The way you speak, the way you present yourself to your boss or your peers, or the way you address those above and below you on the social ladder. And knowing these rules is the key to becoming a functioning adult in Japan. And in the beginning of the film, Chihiro is absolutely horrible at this, at observing and acting as corresponding to Japanese social cues. That is when the first half of the film, she thinks there is two of Haku, two different people. In most cases, there aren't two of the same person in this film. There are simply the public-facing person and the private-facing person. That is what Chihiro learns throughout the film. And as she gets better at tatemae and learns how to use it, this is what will provide her breakthroughs in the second half of the film. She can look beyond the surface level of what is presented and find the true self of the characters behind the people that she meets. And there's another lesson embedded in the first one, about how easy it is to get lost in the social rules and the tatamae, the mask. You might learn and perform it perfectly, but then you forget the other side, the honne, your true feelings, your hopes and your dreams. And if the day-to-day life of adulthood grinds you down, that means that your private self, your true self, is gradually lost. You become the role that you play. You become the salaryman, the office lady, the father, the mother. You can perform the function but forget why you're doing it in the first place. And that is shown as the real mastery of life, perfecting how you perform your zen-ness in society while holding on to your Chihiro-ness. Those are two English words I just invented. I'm not sure they work. So that is why the other key to this film is remembering. And it's the simplest technique that Miyazaki can give you. When in doubt, seek out your childhood self, because that is where your pure feelings are. And how do you seek that out? You get off the muck. You wash off the muck that society and adulthood have put on you. And underneath, you will find yourself. Okay, so how does this tie into eating and capitalism? Through the parents. The parents represent 1980s Japan, which built up this huge economic bubble over property and the stock market. There was a huge business boom, but it all went too fast. And after a point, everyone started buying everything on credit. And there was too much credit and there was not enough money, basically. And in 1992, this crashed the entire economy and threw the country into recession that they still haven't gotten out of. So pretty much what happened over here, just 20 years earlier, because Japanese people tend to invent things earlier, like stock market crashes. So this is capitalism when it doesn't work, which Miyazaki interprets as you take things you didn't work for, you have no respect for the resources that you are taking, and you're trying to solve problems by throwing money at it, or even worse, throwing credit at it. So this is what plays out in the first 10 minutes of the film. The parents, who are not really role models to begin with, they get to this place and they continue to disregard all of the social rules involving what you do when you enter a place of service in Japan and how you behave in a restaurant in Japan. And then they say they want to pay for everything with credit. But in this film, you always see the effects of your actions almost immediately. So you don't have to wait 7 years to see what happens in the economy. With that in mind, here's Daddy Pig facing the realities of the credit-based market economy. Yeah. You can never watch that scene in a different way from now. Sorry. So the parents represent bad capitalism, but bad capitalism is an abstract thing to put in a children's cartoon, basically. So that is where eating comes in. And the visual is quite simple. In this film, you can look at eating as consumption. When you look at the instances of eating in this film, you can always look at the context of that eating and how that fits in with the idea of consumption. Eating can be something you don't want to do, but you have to do in order to survive, or it might be comfort food, or it might be a reward for a day of good work. And then there are the more abstract things in the second half of the film, like how the company you work for can eat your name and claim ownership over your life. Again, the Honne and the tatemae. And then there's the question of what are you feeding the environment? What are you giving your rivers and your gods to eat? There's a fair amount of vomiting in this film, much more than your average Disney film. And it's because the bad things that went in have to come out. Simple. And there's the substituting of objects for human connection, which is the other angle of capitalism that Miyazaki criticizes. People give a lot of gifts and sweets as a substitute for actually helping them, coping with an emotional crisis, like the parents helping Chihiro with the move. And you can give your baby all the toys in the world, but not letting him out of the house means that he'll never grow up. And you can adore money as a god, like the people in the bathhouse do. But that only leads to a shallow one-dimensional existence where everything in your life revolves around money. And you can be like poor No-Face and struggle with making social connections. He deciphers, she, I don't know, the thing, No-Face, deciphers that people react when you give them stuff. So No-Face gives people stuff, but then it's not really good at balancing giving and taking. All this said, it's important to know that this is not an anti-capitalist film. It's not saying from one moment that capitalism, the system itself, is bad. It's just not used well. Miyazaki is not a revisionist. He doesn't want to go back to the good old times. He's a progressive. He wants to move forward and see how we can progress to a better society. So he also shows how spirituality and material wealth can coexist and how they do not contradict each other. The river god leaves behind the magical objects as well as gold for the workers in exchange for the service that it was provided. Plus, you can see at the end of the film how objects can be given by friends and can serve as a reminder of deeper truth that you can take with yourself. So having material things like food or money is not the problem. The problem is when you gain material wealth without service or through greed. And in Miyazaki's good capitalism is where everyone participates, serves society in some way, we serve each other, we do something nice for each other. And at the end of a good day's work, you can eat as a community and share a meal with everyone sitting at the same table, no matter who they are or what they are and what level of society that they come from. Okay, there's a lot to talk about with this film, and there are huge topics I didn't even mention, like name magic and word magic and the Shinto mythological origins for the characters, or what that whole subplot is with the name seal, or how the story flips Disney film storytelling rules. All the Easter eggs like Totoro, the shout back to Akira in the baby scene, or the Pixar lamp that you can spot. Miyazaki's good friends with John Lasseter, so I put it in there. So I will do all of these separately in later talks. And if you want to learn about other stuff, you can hop over to my blog at followthemoonrabbit.com, which already has a full Studio Ghibli guide for you to download. And for any of these topics that I mentioned, you can join me after the screening upstairs for a Q&A and discussion session. Thank you, and please do enjoy the film. Hey, this is Adam from Follow the Moon Rabbit. If you like this talk, you'll be happy to know that there's more. Do note that not all of my stuff is video. I've got free ebooks and blog posts and a podcast is on the way. So to make sure you don't miss any of that, hop on over to followthemoonrabbit.com and join the Moon Rabbit Collective. It's completely free and you'll get my Studio Ghibli Secrets Guide as a welcome gift. So go on to followthemoonrabbit.com and sign up. See you there.